New Philadelphia City Council will now come to order. Would you please rise and remain standing for the invocation and pledge of allegiance? The invocation will be by Mrs. Ramos tonight.
Father, I just thank you for this opportunity to come together and meet together. And I just pray that you would give us wisdom in the decisions here and what we say and what we do. And I pray for all of us, Lord, that we would have the heart to know your wisdom and ears to hear what you're saying, what you're speaking. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody here this evening and welcome those who are watching by live stream. So we'll get our meeting started by a roll call.
Mr. Holland.
Present.
Mr. Lanzer. Here. Mrs. May.
Present.
Mr. Pace.
Present.
Mrs. Ramos.
Here.
Mr. Ricklick. Mr. Rippett.
Present.
All right, let it be known to Mr. Ricklick and Mrs. Auditor, Mrs. Gundy have been excused for this evening. Everybody's had a chance to review the agenda. Do we have any additions to the agenda tonight?
Oh, I need to add resolution number 10, 2023 to tonight's agenda and pass on first reading.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lanzer. In discussion by administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Rippett.
Yes.
All right, are there any other additions to the agenda tonight? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to accept our agenda with the additions.
So
Mrs.
moved.
Ramos, thank you. Mrs. May, second, thank you. In discussion by administration, council, roll call.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Rippett.
Yes.
All right, everybody's had a chance to review the minutes from our last council meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? Here now, entertain a motion to accept, to approve. Mrs. Ramos,
So
thank
moved.
you. Mr. Rippett, thank you. Second. In discussion by administration, council, roll call.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Rippett.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Abstain.
All right, correspondence, Ms. Courtwright.
To council and administration from Mayor Day dated May 9th, 2023. This is the zoning revisions update and work session with Wendy Moeller of Compass Point Planning. To Mayor Day and Service Director McAbeer from Aaron Wright with Omega. This is an email titled Nature Works. To Mayor Day, Police Chief Goodwin and Fire Chief Parrish dated May 15th, 2023 from Sarah Coffey, General Manager of Town Place Suites by Marriott. This is an email titled Town Place Suites Grand Opening. And to Council and Administration from Mayor Day dated May 22nd, 2023, the Mayor's Report. And that concludes correspondence for this evening,
All
Mr.
right,
President.
thank you, Ms. Courtwright. Move into our administrative reports. First up, Mayor Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll go to the podium because at the conclusion of my remarks, I'll make some special presentation. Last week, I received word from the Economic Development Alliance in New Philadelphia, or in the County Economic Development Corporation, that New Philadelphia and Dover, that area has been named to Site Selection Magazine's Top 100 Micropolitan Communities in America. A micropolitan site is defined as an area with a population under 50,000 that has shown substantial economic development. Other criteria include locations to major transportation, quality of life, and amenities. This coming Wednesday, a representative of the Ohio Department of Development will be in town to present a proclamation from Governor DeWine and Lieutenant Governor Husted recognizing this achievement for our area. And I'm very pleased that we have been named to that top 100, and a lot of it has to do with the investment that's being made in the two cities by our manufacturers and other businesses. So I thank them for that and look forward to receiving that proclamation. The city's newest hotel is set to officially open this Thursday with a ribbon-cutting ceremony at noon. The 82-unit Marriott Town Place Suites on West High Avenue features rooms with full kitchens for extended stays in the area. And I ask you to join me in welcoming the owners and the management to New Philadelphia's growing business community. Also, want to make note that the downtown square is going to be closed to traffic on Monday, May 29th at 11 a.m. for the annual Memorial Day ceremony. That'll be on the County Courthouse Plaza. Detour routes will be posted. And I'd like everyone to join us to honor and remember those Tuscarawas County veterans who made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of America and defense of our freedom. And it was an awesome sight to see the downtown alleys filled with vendors and people enjoying the annual Spring Art on the Alley celebration yesterday. The Tuscarawas Arts Partnership did a great job of organizing and staging the event again this year. The sidewalk chalk art added a new dimension to that celebration. I was really happy to see that. Art on the Alley keeps getting bigger and better, and it's helped New Philadelphia become a destination for artists and art collectors. Now I want to conclude my report by presenting letters of commendation. I'd like the Safety Director, Greg Popham, to come up here and help me do this. Letters of commendation to New Philadelphia Police Sergeant Mitchell Gobley and Officers Tristan Lambert and Andrew Boyd. Their shift captain, Tessa Polhovi, recommended they receive this special recognition for the actions they took to help a citizen on Sunday, April 30th. Each commendation reads in part as follows. At around 2:30 p.m., Sergeant Mitchell Gobley and Officers Tristan Lambert and Andrew Boyd were called to an apartment building on Bank Lane Southwest for reports of a woman yelling for help. The officers arrived at the building to discover the upstairs hallway filled with thick black smoke. The fire department was contacted, and the officers ascended the stairs to locate the woman. They were unsuccessful in attempts to talk her out towards them, so they entered the apartment themselves, from which smoke was emerging, and began to search for her. The woman was located and carried down the stairs and outside to safety by Sergeant Gobley. Officers Boyd and Lambert evacuated an occupant and his dog from the neighboring apartment. The remaining apartments were cleared and confirmed vacant. The fire department extinguished the appliance fire upon their arrival, and no serious injuries were sustained. Captain Polhovi stated, quote, "I am very proud of these officers and the way this call was handled. Police work can be unpredictable, and these officers acted without hesitation, prioritizing the safety of others," end quote. So Sergeant Gobley? This is Mitch. Okay. Greg and I would like to present you with this letter of commendation for the action you took and the pride we have in our police department. And thank you. We can't thank you enough. Andrew, we'd like to present you with this letter of commendation for the action you took on that day and for your service to our city and our country. So thank you.
Thank you.
Tristan couldn't be here this evening, so we'll give him his letter of commendation at a later date. Need a photo? Yeah.
Here.
There we go. That concludes my report, Mr. President. Any questions?
Yeah, okay, thank you, Mayor Day. Officers, we thank you for what you do. You guys, we are proud of you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mayor Day. Any questions for Mayor Day? Now move on to Service Director, Mr. McAbeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. We'll start with the Parks Department. If anybody's been down to the skate park, the renovations are complete there. Remember, we had budgeted The whole budget was 35,000. Remember, we had 24,000 in grant, or 16 in grant, 8 in the GoFundMe, so that has been completed. Nice thing is, there was a few pieces of the hurricane board left over, so we put it in the top shop, so whenever some repairs need done, it won't be such a wait for those products. So that is all completed. We'll fill out the paperwork now for the grant to get reimbursed for the 16,132. I think what Aaron had opposed to, that's basically all you get, and we got it all for the county with that skate park one. But again, that stuff is done. Also, finally, RJ Corman has released us to run that storm sewer line, which we've been working with for, seems like 5 years, but it's been about 5 months. But they did finally, last week, give us a signed authorization after probably about $35,000 worth of fees and so on. But if you remember right, we've got to get that through before the small cities paving comes through, because Mill Avenue is on the paving. So I did reach out to the contractor, and actually a month ago, and he's going to start in July. So once that starts, I'll further keep everybody in the know on that. But again, it's finally good to have that, because we've been sitting here in limbo, and that is really why the contractor has pushed us back till July. If not, we'd be working right now. So, and I reached out to Dan Lorenz from ODOT through the small cities and told him our issue and said, hey, we may have to juggle, because they can start as early as July 1st, their calendar year. So I'm working with him. We can always go over to Wabash and kind of eat up some time, so we'll work through it. But I'm just letting everybody know that we finally made that happen. Also, down at the water distribution, if we remember, we moved the fence on the Great All property. We now have a fencing off the water distribution department. That was also the last of that grant. It was like 22,000 left. We completed that grant. It was 28 in the original, 22 in this one. We got the slats, so we will be putting the slats in ourselves again, but now the trail can head through that way. So up until the boat ramps. Again, this fence has been moved. Now we just gotta start working on the trail as we can. Also, I reported, last council meeting on the gas lines, and I reported that the closure there at Front and 10th was gonna be that last week. They ran into some unforeseen issues there. If anybody's been down there, it is still closed. But I was assured today that it'll be open by the end of the business day on Wednesday. So just avoid that area till Wednesday afternoon. And then after that, as I reported before, it'll be one-lane traffic for the duration of that project. But there'll be flaggers there, and they've had police there also. So it's been uneventful as far as anybody down there, so which is good. That's the end of my report. Any questions?
How about Glen Drive?
Well,
They've started on that project.
yeah, they did, and I apologize about that. Having a problem getting one of the precasts made. There was a big company that it was in Canal Fulton, had dispersed Lindsay Concrete, so now we're trying to get it out of Norwalk, and they were having some issues there. So as soon as they get in, that's the one that they take off from, so we're still working on that. But the cuts are made, and they're just waiting for that precast to go so they can start construction.
Mr. Holland?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. McAteer, the alleyway on the north side of the courthouse, the north side of Guide, where you've done work on Second. When Second, that project is completed, is all that gonna be paved?
Well, we will, yes. I want to go through, I don't know if it'll be next year. Well, we're working on I guess we're working on a grant to, should I say, to brick those. All the alleys downtown.
Here, here.
So. In this revitalization grant,
Yeah.
so,
Thank you.
yes, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. McAbeer? All righty, we'll move on to Safety Director, Mr. Popham.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President. On Friday was Officer Jen Horner, our resource officer, was her last day after over 20 years of service to the city. And then later on, in the fire department, a young man from the Bowerston area was put on as a new fireman. His name is Brett Putnam. And 19 years old, and hopefully he'll be a long-term employee for the city. And then at the intersection of Ashwood and North Broadway, the pedestrian crossing lights are up, and not 100% sure that they're operational, but all the equipment has been installed, so if they're not, they should be very soon. And that's all I have.
Any question for Mr. Popham?
One other thing.
Yes.
My mind's a little foggy here. The Civil Service Commission, and I announced last meeting that we're waiting the results of promotional exams as to who's going to be the new chief, captain and sergeant on the police department. And as soon as that certified letters come down, and then we'll bring it in here and we'll announce who the new officers and chiefs is.
All right, great.
That's all.
That's, all right. All right. Hearing nothing else, we'll move on to Mrs. Gundy is excused this evening. Move on to the treasury report. Mr. Gerber.
No report, sir.
All right. Move on to the law director, Mr. Fate.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the proposed legislation I sent out, I sent the vacant property registration and the rental registration. I don't want to steal anything from Mr. Lonzer's when he's going to have his committee meeting on that. But this is something that the administration and I have worked on for a very long time. It's a significant change in how we're going to be approaching things in the city, but it goes along with what the mayor and I have been continuing to try to do, which is to clean up our city and make it safer and a better place for all our citizens, and most importantly, to combat drugs and the issue of vagrancy and homelessness in the area. The vacant property registration is hopefully going to deter the number of vacant properties that we have in our community. It's also going to put them on record. It's going to make people who abandon their property accountable, and it's going to give us the opportunity to get in there and have a registry so we know where the vacant properties are, and we can better address them than we are even now. And we're doing a pretty good job now at tearing down abandoned buildings that are not only unsafe, but are safe havens for drugs. And the rental registration is an effort to deal with, I want to emphasize that the vast majority of our landlords in this community are good landlords, but we do have some slumlords, unfortunately. And at the urging of not only the safety director and the mayor and the fire department and our building inspector, this has come about as a result of we've had safety forces have to go into really bad situations in some apartment buildings where they can't even get through to get to a body, and there's just bugs and infestations of all sorts there. And the effort to do this is to deter that, to get us in where we can inspect them. And this is something that's very new for the community. It's going to take some time and some effort to implement, but I want to encourage everybody on council to look at this very closely. And if you have questions, I want you to spend a thorough amount of time on it, because this is something that we spend a lot of time on working to put together, and I think it's really important for our community, and I encourage the public to comment on it and to address it. Lastly, I am requesting an executive session for two reasons. One is for a legal matter that's required to be kept confidential by law, and the other one is to brief council on an ongoing litigation matter.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fate. Any questions for Mr. Fate? Do we need a motion?
Yes.
Need a motion to go into executive session?
Make the motion.
All right, need a second? Mr. Holland? All right. Discussion by council. Roll call.
Mr. Pace,
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ribbit.
Yes.
All right, so meeting upon our legislative agenda, we will go into executive session. All right, we'll move on to our board commission reports. First, planning commission, Mayor Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Planning Commission's next meeting will be on Tuesday, June 13th at 1 o'clock here in council chambers, and we're still developing the agenda for that meeting.
All right. Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. McAbeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board of Zoning Appeals will meet June 13th at 5 PM here in council chambers.
All right. All right, Airport Commission, Mr. Lonzer.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Airport Commission will be meeting here in council chambers, June 13th at 6 PM.
All right. Move on to Park Board, Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. President. Park Board met this past Wednesday at the Park Pavilion. And a couple updates, the park opens this weekend. We have a Ferris wheel ceremony on Sunday. And we've got some work being done down at the Waterworks. The youth softball program raised $20,000 to redo Field 7 and Field 8 down at the Waterworks. So all the youth baseball and softball fields except for 9 and 10 are complete. Well, Field 7 will be done tomorrow. But the Waterworks looks great with help from the city, of the park department. I mean, it's something the city can be proud of. So that's all I have from the park board.
Yeah, I know you weren't here the last time, but congratulations on the fishing derby at
Thank
the
you.
park.
That was
That was
awesome.
a great afternoon for
Yeah.
kids and parents and grandparents. And
There's probably still a few left in there too, so if we got some free time, go out and wet a line.
But a lot of work putting that together, so again, thank you for all that you do there, so. Health Board, Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Health Board will meet Wednesday, June the 14th at noon here in the council chamber.
All right, thank you. Move on to our council committee reports. We'll move to Public Works and Economic Development, Mr. Lonzer.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
All right, move on to Safety, Health and Services, Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
All right, we'll move on to zoning and annexation, Mrs.
Thank you.
Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
All right, last but not least, salary, Mrs. May.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this
All
evening.
right. All right, the Parks and Cemetery.
Special.
I haven't got there yet.
Oh, I thought that was it. I'm sorry. I thought it was the
I
last.
thought you said last but not least.
Well, no, I've missed Amy a couple times. I'm looking, making eye contact. so, yeah.
President begs for your
So-
patience.
That's it.
Parks and Cemetery, Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Parks and Cemetery Committee met this evening at 7:15 to discuss resolution number 10, 2023. There was a resolution for a NatureWorks grant for the South Side Community Park for the youth soccer fields. The resolution passed unanimously, and it was added to tonight's agenda for, to pass on first reading. That's all I have for this evening.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pace. All right, now, contact and special, Mr. Ribbit.
All of that to tell you that I have no report tonight, Mr. President. Thank you.
All right. It's now time for visitors' comments. The floor is now open for visitors' comments. Anyone wishing to address council should rise, state their name and address, and address all comments to the chair. You'll be given 5 minutes. Do we have anybody wishing to speak this evening?
Good evening, President Kemp and council. Reverend Ben Lippert, 126 22nd Street Southeast,
Thank you.
Philadelphia. President Kemp, tonight I speak before you not as a pastor of my congregation or as a member of the House of Hope Committee for Friends of the Homeless. Tonight I speak plainly as a citizen of New Philadelphia. I want to speak about how this city runs public meetings and how disappointing, I find that process to be. At the zoning board meeting on Tuesday, May 9th, the lack of professionalism and inclusion of citizens in the democratic process was truly appalling. 60 to 70 citizens attended that meeting, some for and some against the proposed shelter at the old Twilight Drive-In. All of them took time out of their busy day to be there. The committee there conducted their business like the public was not present. They used no microphones. The majority of citizens present could not hear the discussion or even hear the vote. There was not even an agenda made public to citizens on the city website, beforehand. The only reason I know who voted for or against the resolution is someone on my committee talked to one of the committee members afterwards. The most appalling part for me was the public comment portion. The committee let one person speak from Friends of the Homeless and one person speak for the citizens of Brightwood. Then, for a reason that none of us were given or could be reasonably be expected to hear, no public comment was allowed for the tax-paying citizens of New Philadelphia. My wife, members of our church, and other neighbors of this site were not given the opportunity to speak for or against the motion, despite living in close proximity of the proposed site. I'm curious about what authority the zoning board had to suspend public comment for a public meeting. It has people in my neighborhood frustrated and upset. Should we send our tax dollars to Brightwood or Goshen Township so we can have a voice in their democratic process? I've attended many public meetings in many different communities, but I've never ever seen a non-tax-paying citizen group be given time to speak, but tax-paying members of a community were denied a voice. On Tuesday, May 9th, the city of New Philadelphia ignored the voice of its citizens on an issue that those citizens care deeply about. That simply is not acceptable. And additionally, the majority of public meetings I have attended in the John Knisley Municipal Center hosted by the city or the committee of the city has not featured adequate amplification of sound for myself or for other citizens. Your room is set up so there is quite a distance between the public and the legislative body of that city. That is a problem both for hearing impaired people and large groups of citizens at important meetings. That means every speaker that talks on behalf of the city at those meetings should have quality microphones so they can be heard clearly by the public present, not just for the YouTube stream. The public has a right to be an active part of the democratic process. And I am informing you tonight on May 22nd that I have filed an ADA complaint with the Department of Justice on behalf of myself, Ben Lippert, a hearing impaired individual, and the citizens of New Philadelphia. How the city of New Philadelphia is currently conducting meetings violates ADA Title II effective communication requirements of public meetings conducted by the state and local government. As of this afternoon, there is no information on the city website about who to contact to request reasonable accommodations for meetings such as these. A copy of these comments have been sent to the Department of Justice legal team. I'm simply asking that you conduct your meetings in a more professional, inclusive manner from this point on for the benefit of your citizens. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. I will take that under advisement as far as the ADA and would have. I said I will take under advisement your questions about the ADA to make sure compliant for people to be able to hear in here during our meetings. So yeah, I'll take a look at that.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate that, President Kemp.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to address council? All right, we'll move on to council comments. Anybody in council have comments this evening? Only comments I got is this coming week is Memorial Weekend, and like the mayor, we should make sure we honor all those who have sacrificed their life for our country and to have the freedoms that we have. So then we have the ceremonies here on the square on Monday, so I'd welcome all those to attend to honor those folks. Any other council members have any comments? That will move into the legislative agenda.
Resolution number 7, 2023, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a partnership agreement with the city of Uhrichsville, Ohio for the project year 2023 Community Housing Impact and Preservation CHIP program and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Is there any action taken by council on this legislation
Mr.
tonight?
President, yes, I would like to move that we suspend the rules on Resolution 7, 2023, and vote on it tonight.
All right,
I'll second it.
Mr. Alonso, okay, second. All right, any discussion by council, by administration? Roll call.
Mr. Rippeth.
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
All right, I entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, Resolution 7, 2023, you need a second. Mr. Alonso. All right, any discussion by the community, administration, council? Roll call.
Mr. Rippeth.
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Abstain.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
All right, 7, 2023 has passed.
All right. Resolution number 8, 2023, a resolution by the council of the city of New Philadelphia, Tuscarawas County, Ohio, authorizing and directing the mayor of the said city of New Philadelphia to act as the signature designee and to file an application for financial assistance under Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, PL 93-383, to the Office of Community Development, Division of the Ohio Development Services Agency, Office of Local Government Services, and to accept the same upon award and declaring an emergency, second reading.
Is there any action to be taken on this legislation tonight?
Mr. President, I would move that we suspend the rules and vote on Resolution 8, 2023 this evening.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Pace, thank you. Any comments from the administration, council? Roll call.
Mr. Rippeth.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
All right, entertain a motion for Resolution 8, 2023.
I would move that we vote on Resolution 8, 2023 this evening.
Do I have a
Mr. President.
second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pace. In discussion by administration, council, community, roll call.
Mr. Rippeth.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Abstain.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
All right, Resolution 8, 2023 has passed.
Resolution number 9, 2023, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the Ohio Regional Development Corporation for administrative services for the project year 2023 Community Housing Impact and Preservation CHIP program, and authorizing ORDC to submit an application to the project year 2023 CHIP on behalf of the city of New Philadelphia and declaring an emergency, second reading.
Is there any action to be taken on this legislation tonight?
Yes, Mr. President, I would move that we suspend the rules on Resolution 9, 2023, and vote on it this evening.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Alonso, thank you. All right, any discussion by the community, council, administration, roll call.
Mr. Rippeth.
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Abstain.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
All right, Resolution 9, 2023 has passed.
Oh, yeah, it was suspension of rules, wasn't it?
The rules
Oh,
are suspended.
All right.
Order.
All right, entertain a motion now to approve Resolution 9, 2023. Mr. Alonso?
Yes, Mr. President, I ask that we vote on Resolution 9, 2023.
Do I have a second?
Yes, Mr. President.
All right, Mr. River, thank you. Any discussion by community, administration, council? Roll
Miss-
call.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mr. Rippeth.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Abstain.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
All right, Resolution 9, 2023 has passed.
Resolution number 10, 2023, a resolution by the council of the city of New Philadelphia, Tuscarawas County, Ohio, authorizing and directing the mayor to submit a grant application with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources through the Ohio Nature Works program for assistance for public recreation purposes, and once the grant offer is received, further authorizing the mayor to execute the grant contract and all related documents, and authorizing the city of New Philadelphia to accept any grant money awarded to the city of New Philadelphia and declaring an emergency, first reading.
Is there any action to take on this legislation tonight? Mr. Pace?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd ask that we suspend the rules to pass resolution number 10, 2023.
Do I have a second?
second that.
All right, Mr. Alonso, thank you. All right, any discussion by administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Rippet.
Yes.
All right, rules have been suspended. Now to entertain a motion to pass resolution 10, 2023. Mr. Pace?
Yes.
Need a second.
I will second that.
All right, Mr. Rippet, thank you. Any discussion by community, administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Rippet.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
All right, resolution 10, 2023 has passed.
That concludes legislation for this evening, Mr.
All
President.
right, thank you, Ms. Cartwright. All right, it is now 8:08. We'll take a 5-minute recess and we go into executive session at 8:13. back in regular session. Is there any unfinished or old business that needs to be brought before council? Any new business?
Yes, just, don't forget Wendy Muller's gonna be here at 1 o'clock tomorrow.
All right,
Is that
If
gonna,
you can
is there
make it.
gonna be a link online,
Yeah,
like the last time that she did it?
yeah,
She's coming at 1 or 3?
one.
that's the,
Oh, it changed, okay.
No, no.
I thought it was 3.
no, you're talking about 3 o'clock. That is the second hearing for the CHIP grant we're gonna have on the 30th of May at 3
No,
o'clock.
tomorrow,
That's at
tomorrow,
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
Tomorrow's 1 o'clock.
Okay.
yeah.
But also May 30th, we have our, since they messed it up, you know, Mr. Harder was here last time. We was hoping to have it tonight, but we can't do it to be in compliance until the 30th. So that's at 3 PM here in council chambers. All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, I would move that we adjourn this meeting
All
of
right,
the New Philadelphia City Council.
all right, 8:39.
Bang the gavel, let's go home.
Snazzy.
Hey, thanks,